Welcome everyone to our sixth session of Optimize 25, the power of four from reactive proposals to proactive strategy. Today's session is being recorded. The recording will be available on the registration page after the session ends. Make sure to submit any questions to the Q&A box. Rachel has set aside some time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Rachel Charlton, owner of Sticky Communications.
Hello, everybody. I know you can't see my face, but I promise I will make an appearance at the end. But I'm so excited for today to dive in. If you can, take a moment in the comments box and just let me know what your role position is at the firm you're at. I would love to kind of get an idea of where everyone's coming from, your perspectives, things like that, just to kind of have that at the end. So let's dive in. I know that it's between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. for people in the US, which means lunch, post-lunch slump. So we're gonna just like make this energetic. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna start with a walk down memory lane, specifically to your childhood in elementary school. So maybe this is just a millennial thing. Maybe it's not. Let me know in the comments if this is not a game you've ever heard of. But do y'all remember the game telephone tag? So telephone tag is basically the kids would get lined up in a row, and the teacher would give them a word or a phrase to then pass along to their neighbor. And the point was for it to stay the same at the very end, but you know how that goes, it never does. So I thought this is such a great analogy for the pursuit process life cycle and what often seems to happen and how siloed it can get and things that just get lost in translation along the way. So this is kind of just a fun little frame up to what the pursuit process life cycle is. For those, and it kind of frames up the whole big idea of this presentation. So this is what we're really honing in on today. So if your pursuit process lacks clarity and shared ownership, and marketing only shows up at the proposal stage, you're missing your biggest opportunity to align, differentiate, and win. So some of you might be thinking, well, isn't pursuit and proposal like the same thing, like interchangeable? It is not. A proposal is part of the pursuit life cycle. What is a pursuit life cycle? Let's get into it. So some of you might be familiar with what a pursuit process life cycle looks like. Some of you might be doing it already at your firms. Some of you might be like, what the heck is that? And some of you might break it down differently and have different terminology, but the concept is the same. So this is how I kind of view the pursuit process, and typically in 4 phases. So it's understand the client, gather and share intel, position and test, and tell the story. So I also understand that this is very linear. It's really very cyclical, and how often what kind of connects the dot on that is how well you actually deliver the project and the client feedback they get along the way, which then goes on to inform the understand the client and all of that, so on and so forth. So a lot of what happens, like the first few phases of the pursuit life cycle typically should happen before the RFP drops. And I would argue that some of even of the content that goes into the proposal itself should happen before the RFP drops in an ideal world. And it really just depends on a myriad of factors, but we're keeping this very high level for today. So again, those first 3 phases in the pursuit process life cycle, that's 80% of the entire pursuit life cycle. And that 80% really does make or break what goes on and happens in that 20%, which is the proposal and the client interview. So kind of remember the name of, remember like when I was talking about the telephone tag game and how often things get so siloed? Well, oftentimes this is where marketing kind of just is brought in. They're plugged in like, hey, RFP dropped, go, make it pretty, make it, make it make sense, do your thing. And there's this mad scramble to kind of play catch up. I think for those of us who have been in the industry as marketers for a longer period of time, we typically, if we're thrown into the situation, we can adapt and we're pretty agile and still kind of figure our way around. But I would argue that it's still not as good as it could be. So let's move into kind of breaking down what goes on in each phase of the pursuit lifecycle process. So understanding the client, this is the listening and empathy phase. So this is where the team gathers intelligence on the client's goals, their pain points, pressures, and then the decision driver. So this phase is less about the solutions and more about context. So it's figuring out, what does this client value? What do they fear? What do they need? What do they expect? Like, what kind of, what do we know about their life? So it's relationship building and active listening. And that really just takes priority over messaging at this point in time. It's showing up to add value to building that relationship. And why this matters in the pursuit lifecycle is that without this, teams often default to generic solutions that miss the mark. So we just kind of lean in on like our features as a firm, like, oh, we're so cool, we're so awesome, and this is what's worked for other clients, so it has to work for you. And then moving on to the gather and share intel phase. So this is where you turn client knowledge into team knowledge. Again, the gather and share, the share is key here. And this is insights from business development, your seller doers, past pursuits, client conversations that are captured, synthesized, and shared. And this is where internal alignment also begins, and figuring out, who are we up against? What do we know? What don't we know? And really oftentimes, and this is in an ideal world, marketing and BD often lead the intel capture tools and the meetings that go around that, and figuring out competitor analysis. And really why this matters, it prevents siloed knowledge and positions the team to shape strategy and not just react. And again, going back to that game of telephone tag. Then you've got the position and test phase. This is where the strategy starts to take shape. So this is where the team aligns on themes, differentiators, and win strategy. This is where also concepts and solutions and storylines and messages are tested internally and externally and before the RFP hits. So this is where drafting of messaging frameworks, some outlines, maybe some pursuit briefs happen here. And why this matters in the grand scheme of things is that early positioning avoids the just start writing chaos later and creates a consistent client-facing narrative. You make it very personal to them, their needs. I also want to point out, when I say understand the client is not just one person. You shouldn't have, Bob with the city of Namerson, and that's your guy. And you're like, well, Bob says this. No, you actually need to get more context if you can figure out who's going to be on the evaluation committee, the panel, understanding what makes them tick, really kind of getting into their hearts and minds. And this is where marketing and even BD can be such a valuable asset to help you flesh out those ideas. Again, this is a team effort, being an asset to each other in this game. The last phase is to tell the story. And this is where the writing, the layout, the graphic design, the delivery phase, all of that happens. And this can be proposals, presentations, interviews, etc. And really, marketing is kind of the lead on this, and they take all of that strategic legwork up front, and they just make it into this cohesive client-facing story. And then why it matters, without strategic groundwork from early phases, this becomes reactive and high stress and often misses the mark. Again, it's not really showing the client you understand them or where they're coming from. So the point is, integrated teams across all 4 phases create better pursuit outcomes. This isn't about more meetings. This is about smarter collaboration. This isn't about, oh my gosh, so much more overhead. This is basically taking the proposal as a handoff to a co-creation. So we want to be able to co-create together throughout the pursuit lifecycle. So speaking of the pursuit lifecycle, we have to talk about the pursuit players. And I want to give a shout out. I had someone message me on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago. I hope they're in the audience today. And they reached out and said, hey, are you going to be featuring Lord of the Rings in your presentation? If anyone knows me, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. Honestly, was not planning on it, but ask and you shall receive. And I couldn't help myself, and I just made it way more fun. So why not make things fun? So you have Aragorn as your seller doer, your client account manager. You have Gimli, who's your subject matter expert. You have Gandalf, who is going to be our BD manager. And we have Samwise, who's going to be our marketing lead. So fun side note for those of you who are also Lord of the Rings nerds, I love you guys, you're my people, is that in the books, even in the films a little bit, but Samwise was a sucker for story. Like, he loved a good story. He could not get enough good stories. He would share stories at key moments. And he was a bit of a poet and songwriter. So he was just a colorful dude, great storyteller. So kind of leaning into, I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. I am not very, very familiar. I know there's some hardcore people out there that do that. I think that's awesome. But kind of leaning into that, I think they have like character sheets or something like that. And so kind of in the spirit of that, this is what I'm doing, just to kind of help quickly break down each player's like strengths and their mission throughout the entire pursuit process life cycle. So you have your seller doer and your client account manager. And quick side note, I realize that some of you guys don't have maybe dedicated business development managers, maybe marketers, and kind of overlap in that world. And again, these are just kind of 4 main players for the sake of today. So you've got your seller doer, strengths and superpowers. They build client trust early, leads technical strategy articulation, validates project understanding and approach narratives, and really kind of coordinates in the background with your subject matter experts and even some sub-consultants that also are subject matter experts. So seller doers don't just validate technical feasibility, they're often the core technical strategist behind your pursuit story. Again, we all need each other in this grand scheme and journey. So of course, building client trust is only half the story. So we also need that technical credibility. And this is where our subject matter expert or Gimli steps in. But I just got ahead of myself. Their mission, seller doers, is to shape the pursuit with grounded client knowledge, technical credibility, and clear project strategies that align with real world expectations. Now we can move on to Gimli. His strengths and superpowers in the role of subject matter expert is identify technical risk and gaps, strengthen solution credibility, surfaces technical differentiators. And his mission throughout the pursuit lifecycle is to ground the pursuit strategy in technical truth and practical possibilities. And then, we all know that technical is just a part of the grand scheme of all of this. So we need someone guiding the pursuit with a clear strategic view of the whole board, right? The kind of that common thread. And I think that's the role of our BD managers, the Gandalfs of the team. So the BD manager, their strengths and superpowers are they are architects of the pursuit strategy, connects client drivers or hot buttons or objectives or whatever you want to call it, risk and differentiators. They guide the team focus across phases, again, that common thread factor or denominator. And their mission is to shape and steer the pursuit strategy with client-centered alignment from the earliest conversations. And really, BD managers, they lead the capture effort typically, but this is also where marketers really shine, and they kind of help distill and further refine the messaging and assist in that whole capture process. And then you have our marketing lead, Samwise. And just really quickly, unlike the other players we just talked about, kind of going back to the challenge I was talking about earlier, is that marketing is often only plugged in at the tell the story phase. So really, they are catalysts for using storytelling techniques to help the team bridge the gap between technical jargon and human connection. So marketing lead strengths are to synthesize intel into a cohesive, client-centered story, collaborates with and coaches the team to frame clear pursuit messaging early, keyword, aligns communication and delivery throughout the pursuit lifecycle. And his mission, yes, it is potatoes with pan, is to translate strategy into a compelling pursuit story, guiding the client experience from early positioning through the final proposal. So really, to truly differentiate, marketing needs to be shaping the story from the very beginning. This is a team sport, and this is all about alignment, of avoiding chaos later on, avoiding that kind of reactive feel. And really, marketing isn't a last-minute resource. It's a strategic advantage when engaged early. So now that we know the strengths and the mission that each player brings to the pursuit process lifecycle, let's map out at a glance when and where each one steps up across the pursuit lifecycle. And I did this in form of a RACI matrix. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. Let me know in the comments if you use it. I think it could be such a great tool and resource to kind of at a glance establish roles. Again, this is nothing that's set in stone. It's not rigid. There might be more players in your RACI matrix. And RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It's an acronym. And I've even seen where people add an S to that, RASCI, which stands for supportive or supporting, which again can be a really great goal to kind of further break things down. But this, again, at a glance, is how all of the players are kind of plugged in within that kind of pursuit life cycle. Again, ownership clarity. So let's bring it all home. Okay, so part of the big idea is getting marketing engaged sooner in your pursuit process. And some of you might be wondering, well, so what? Like, why should I do that? And I've kind of given some explanations, and it all sounds so great, but does it actually work, Rachel? And like, let's bring some stats into it, okay? Like, this is not a theory. This is proven. It's like we've got the stats to back it up here. It's not all frosting and no cupcake. All right, so stat number 1, surprise, shocker, higher win rates. So firms that involve marketing earlier in the sales cycle see 13 to 20% higher win rates. And this is a study from the SMPS Foundation in 2020. So again, think of it, marketing early involvement as a win strategy and not just wasted, chaotic overhead. Then you've got, cross-functional pursuit teams are 2.4 times more likely to craft a differentiated proposal, a proposal that stands out in the sea of proposals. And this is from McKinsey & Company, 2021. They are a managing consulting company that's been around since, I think, 1926 in Chicago. So again, this differentiation comes from that early alignment and not just kind of last-minute polishing. Stat number 3, firms that align BD and marketing early are 36% more likely to meet growth targets. And this is from the Hinge Research Institute in 2022. So this isn't just about a single pursuit. Like, I know some of you might be, if you're anything like me, it's like you want results instantly. We want a solid ROI like immediately. And really, this is about doing this over time. It is a business growth strategy, and you can measure this in different ways. And really, this growth is going to come by being consistent. It's not just about one great proposal. The last stat is integrated pursuit strategy reduces proposal rework by up to 50%. 50%. Like that, I think that's my favorite stat. Like, think about all the rework that you've done because of lack of communication, not being aligned early, like people rewriting entire sections like this. This could just save so many frustrated late nights. This is an internal industry survey. The stat is from an internal industry survey via PSMJ. So again, half the rework we do is caused by missing alignment, not missing talent, is because you are not leveraging your people or training your people effectively to work as a team, a cohesive team in the pursuit process. So, I mean, all of us would love fewer late nights and less stress and more trust. So those are the stats. All right, so we've talked about the phases of the pursuit process life cycle. We've talked about kind of the main pursuit players and how they kind of contribute and the strengths they bring across the entire life cycle. And we've shown some stats, but let's talk about, okay, so how do we actually start doing this? How do we start making these tactical shifts to build these bigger wins? So integrate marketing into capture and positioning conversations. We talked about this a little bit earlier. So I think capture planning often gets rushed, it's misunderstood, or it's just skipped altogether, especially when marketing isn't involved. So when marketers are informed early and have a voice at the positioning table, the pursuit story starts before the RFP ever drops. Think of all of the work that you just save yourself. It sets you up for success. It actually ends up making your technical staff invest less overhead time in that last phase, because you guys are in sync, like you're in alignment, you're on the same page. So so the message is something you scramble to create later. It's something you build into your strategy from the beginning. So speaking of alignment, align early with shared intel. So shared info equals shared advantage. Like really, it's that simple. It's how you are able to equip your staff to share intel. A lot of that comes from the technologies, the training, the platforms you have in place. Actually, we'll get into that in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Bullet 3, get clear on ownership across phases. And I kind of showed that quickly with that RACI matrix of just getting ownership clarity, of making sure you're on the same page so that you guys aren't doing like double work or getting in each other's way or missing things or just assuming, oh, well, so-and-so is taking care of that. And then it's like, oh crap, they didn't. So we need to, figure this out. Include marketing in client debriefs to uncover strategic insights. This is something that can be such an asset. And I realize that there's a lot of egos and personalities involved, but I really would encourage you, even if you win or lose, is to really bring in marketing in some form or fashion to that client debrief. Because I think marketing can really help surface some strategic truths that maybe technical team is not picking up on, and vice versa. We all bring a different filter, a different perspective into these things. And it's not about pointing fingers. It's not about pointing blame. It's about how do we make each other better? How do we strengthen each other, build each other up? And how do we end up working with the clients we actually want to work with? Just because we can do something for a client doesn't mean we actually want to work with them. So I've got some great news. Everything we're talking about here today is doable without hiring new people, buying new software, or building out new processes. And I know that's probably what some of you are thinking, like, oh my gosh, we'll have to do all these new processes, get all this new software. No, if I could get paid to go into every single firm and reduce the amount of software waste and technology waste, I would love that. Like, I don't know if any of you guys feel that pain, but like there's just so much software redundancies in firms. I feel like just add to the chaos. But it's really about using the tools that you have in a way that works best for your entire team throughout the pursuit process. And this can come in the form of using, Microsoft Teams and creating channels, using, visible threads platforms and software. So it's really about understanding the purpose and point of the tools that you have, and you don't need to add to that. So really, every small shift we make moves us closer to real pursuit rhythm. And just want to drive this home is that early alignment isn't just all this extra overhead. It's really a strategic advantage. Like I've said earlier, it's how you stop surviving and you start winning. Because I think we can so easily get caught up in this whole survival mode of just pumping out proposals. Which kind of brings me to my next point that I am going to harp on one more time, is that we've mistaken disjointed hustle for high functioning pursuit strategy. And it's costing us. Like, and some of us, we just don't know better, or that's all we know, or we figured that this is the only way. So like, we're kind of just stuck with this. Like, it seems it's a process, like, and it's kind of works. And, if we involve marketing sooner, like it's going to be chaotic. And it's, again, going back to that game of telephone tag of, it's really costing you because you don't have that early alignment. And then it's in this kind of guise of I think the danger you can fall into is that you think of this as efficient, and it's really not. It's just shifting the chaos downstream. So again, at this point, I know that some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds like extra work. Our process works fine. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I get it. Like there's a lot coming at you every day. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to not, shake, the, I don't even have an analogy here. I'm going to just move on. But, again, this is something I see a lot of. And I think when we skip that early alignment, we just bolt marketing onto proposal at the end, and then it seems faster. But what actually happens is we waste time scrambling to stitch together strategies, fix gaps, rewrite narratives, and chase deadlines at the 11th hour. It's just chaotic, and nobody's happy, and everyone hates their lives at the end of this. And I never want to talk to this project manager again. So when marketing engages early, you do sharpen your pursuit strategy before you ever start writing. So don't be so focused on the writing part. And instead of trying to make that magic happen in 3 weeks after the RFP drops, which is a rarity for some of us, like some of us have even less time, right? You've already built the story the client needs to hear. So again, early marketing alignment isn't administrative overhead. It is a competitive advantage. And I'm going to say that over and over and over again. So stay prepared so you don't have to get prepared. I love this saying. It's not mine. I've heard it phrased a bit differently of stay ready so you don't have to get ready, kind of the same thing. But prepared teams aren't scrambling at the last minute. They're ready all along because they've built alignment early. Real pursuit strength comes from living in a state of readiness because of all the upstream teamwork that you've done. And again, we've built this norm where the proposal is the marketing team's first real moment of collaboration. Think about that. The proposal is the first real moment of collaboration. They're marketing. Why? Like they could be such marketers, stop staying in your lane, show up, be a resource, be an asset, ask questions, be interested, understand your pipeline, your top and target clients. There's so much value that we bring to the table. So again, the best pursuit teams don't just co-author content, they co-create strategy. And that starts way before the RFP ever drops. So everything we've talked about today, the players, the phases, the shifts, points to one idea. A scalable, right-sized pursuit process only works when every player is engaged at the right time. And marketing, they're not an add-on. They're a strategic advantage, especially when engaged from the beginning. Because when you align early, you don't just write better proposals, you build better pursuit outcomes, start to finish. So stop playing telephone tag and start playing chess. Thanks so much. Chloe, questions?
Yes. Okay. So I do see some in the chat. So I'm just going to go in order. Our first question is, what is your definition of marketing? In a large size company, having corporate marketing involved in a bid process would be a nightmare. We have guidelines and branding that we follow that comes from marketing.
Wait, say that one more time.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so it is, what is your definition of marketing?
Okay,
I'm in a large size company, having corporate marketing involved in a bid process would be a nightmare. We do have guidelines and branding that we follow that comes from marketing.
Great question. Thank you so much, Sarah. Definition of marketing. Yeah. So that's a very broad umbrella term, and everyone kind of has a different understanding of that. So in a large size company, oftentimes you will have marketing kind of split up into two different groups. So you've got corporate communications or corporate marketing. They're more external facing as far as getting like messaging out there around the company, the brand. Maybe they're managing the kind of the social media pages, some of the conferences, etc. But when I talk about marketing here, I'm talking about your folks that are pumping out proposals, basically. So y'all, I don't know. This is, I mean, again, marketing, it looks different for every firm, but really marketers are those folks talking about specifically that help craft proposals, that help coach client interview preps, that are your graphic designers, that help you kind of strategically think through things. So they're kind of your internal thought process that should be a reflection of your brand. So your brand messaging, your brand framework, your purpose, your mission value, who should have an understanding of what your marketing plan is if you do have a marketing plan. But yeah, there should be alignment all around, but corporate marketing often isn't in the trenches and isn't as familiar with maybe what's going on in the whole pursuit process realm. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Sarah? I hope it does. If not, we can talk later. I am also seeing another question from Felicity. During a long relationship-driven sales process, how do you suggest involving the marketing team when an opportunity might not exist for another year or more? Okay, good question. During a long relationship-driven, how do you suggest? Yeah, so I think it's just a matter of, one, letting them know about it. I think marketing should also just know about it. And it's, again, creating platforms where you can share that information and plugging in the right people. I would argue that it would be a good idea to assign a marketing lead to a long, maybe relationship-driven sales like opportunity. If it's tied to a specific opportunity. If not, maybe it's not. I think it really just depends on the opportunity. But yes, I think involving marketing early and having channels where they can show up and have knowledge of a client and upcoming opportunity could be valuable. Chloe, other questions?
Yes, we do have one more. Michael is asking if you would be so kind to show who your references are on your stats chart.
Yeah, no, okay, so let's see. I did call them out as I was talking about them, but I didn't feature them on that. Chloe, are we going to be sending out the slide decks to folks who attended today? Okay.
Yes.
So how about this? How about I put those sources on that slide deck for you guys to have? I know that the higher win rates, I can talk, the 13 to 20% of involving marketing sooner is from the SMPS Foundation in 2020. The 2.4 times more likely to have a differentiated proposal, that was through McKinsey and Company, something like that. And that was from 2022. And then the 36% of meeting your growth targets, I think that was from, I don't recall off the top of my head. But I know also there was like a PSMJ study in there too. So yeah, let me go ahead and update that slide for everyone and just make sure that you guys have those sources because that's very important. So thanks, Michael.
And then we just had two, oh, I'm sorry.
No, Paul's like, this isn't a question, but your bookshelf game is glorious. Thank you so much, Paul. I love it. I'm trying to up my game here, but it's a work in progress. So any other questions? Again, if you are just, I know that kind of was a lot. It was very high level. There's a lot of things that go into this. And also there is a lot of things that probably happen before the pursuit process even starts that will be indicative of how successful your pursuit process will be. And that's having, again, a solid brand framework, which that's usually your brand purpose, promise, assets, character, and champions, but also having a marketing plan, which is typically informed through your business plan, the goals and strategy, but really kind of having that focus of who your top and target clients are. And again, I would encourage marketers, like, I think that the small ways to kind of to encourage this is starting small. Start with one technical seller doer, understand who their clients are, ask them like, hey, how is this client doing? Or, what do you have going on with this? Or express interest in their upcoming projects, because you should have a pulse on the pipeline of upcoming work. And you can just plug yourself in and offer to be an asset, offer to be a valuable resource to them and help them distill down that incredible technical knowledge and expertise and intel that they bring to the table. And maybe they're not a great note taker. Maybe Bob pins down his notes in very shorthand and has like the worst handwriting ever. I think it's understanding who your technical seller doers are and their strengths. And then you can equip them with tools. Like, there's AI note takers now. You can record and transcribe meetings. Maybe you send someone else in with Bob, who's like a really good, open-ended question asker. And so I think it's just, again, getting that team alignment and using the tools and technology that you have and really kind of connecting your people, processes, and technology. And I know this sounds like so easy. It's so easy to say, and it definitely is kind of an uphill battle and something that everyone struggles with. And again, it's not finger pointing. It's not saying you're wrong or my way is the only way. It's just finding ways to add value and create a more team experience for everybody and create that kind of team chemistry where you guys know each other's roles and intel and knowledge and expertise so well that you have each other's back. And that really creates a very safe, wholesome environment. And you're going to have less employee, you're going to increase your employee retention and increase your client retention. And again, ultimately spend less in overhead. So yeah, that's any other questions?
We did have two more come in really quickly that we could cover. So the first one, Dana, I believe is how you pronounce it, says, I am a one-person marketing team and low on the totem pole. I am trying to implement a marketing plan that encompasses a lot of what you discuss. What steps do you suggest to be heard in my medium-sized firm?
Say that one more time. I don't think I see that question on my screen. Can you repeat that one more time, Chloe? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. I am a one-person marketing team and low on the totem pole. I'm trying to implement a marketing plan that encompasses a lot of what you are discussing. What steps do you suggest to be heard in my medium-sized firm? Wow, that is a really, like, kudos to you. Like, I like being a one-woman show or one marketer show like that. That is a whole other ball game, and it can be a challenge to kind of bring people along and get buy-in. So I guess I'm curious to kind of explore this a little bit further because it's such an important, it's near and dear to my own heart. But like I kind of want to understand a few things as far as context goes. Like, are you kind of creating this marketing plan like in a vacuum because you think it's a great idea and you're going to kind of throw it at people? Or is it something that's a bit more collaborative? You're involving key strategic players, you're trying to get buy-in, gut checks along the way, you're pulling data from maybe your CRM or accounting database that kind of shows trends over the past few years about, the high contract value clients to kind of determine target top clients. Like, how are you kind of approaching this entire process? Because I think that also will indicate how well it's going to go over. And maybe sometimes it's a little bit about scaling that, because I know that I introduced a firm that had been around for 35 years to marketing plans. They had 5 market sectors, and we did one for each sector. I had built up a good relationship with the CEO and some of the board as well, and pitched them basically why it would be a good idea to do a marketing plan across each sector and what that could look like.
and they were a little bit overwhelmed and they weren't sure how some of the technical seller doers would take it. It seemed like a lot of extra work. And so I kind of gave it to them in like bite-sized pieces, and actually did kind of an abridged or smaller marketing plan to start off with and baby steps, right? And then the next year we did it like a more robust, like once they saw kind of the results and how it made their lives easier and more streamlined. So I don't know if that answers your question. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any other questions, like if you want to talk about it more, if you want to try to problem solve, like I am happy to connect and be a resource for anybody. We are all in this together. We all have common struggles and challenges. So again, I just thank you guys for your time, for showing up, for your questions. I really appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will go ahead and close out this session. Rachel, do you have any like final parting thoughts?
No, did you mention that there was another question, or do we not have time to address that?
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I missed this one. We do have one more question. Thank you for calling me out on that. This is from Natalie. And Natalie is asking, do you think it's a good idea for the marketing lead to designate people's roles, or should that come from someone else?
Ooh, great question. I think so. By designating roles, I think it's that's a really good question. Again, I think it's about establishing and having the conversations up front. So, whoever your main players typically are, maybe have a quick roundtable or, a lunch and learn something or other and say, hey, this is, what do you feel like your typical role is in this kind of pursuit process? Do you have a pursuit process? And see, maybe, everyone shows up differently. Everyone has different strengths. I think it should be a collaborative thing. Again, I would say kind of just have a rule of thumb, like, and be flexible, but just have a rule of thumb across the organization and kind of set expectations. So I think this is something that can be done on more of a, I don't even know if executive level is the right word for it, but like, I would say just make it collaborative and kind of just make it a kind of a known thing just across the organization and communicate that down. I don't know if that helps, but no, I don't think you should be doing it in a vacuum of like, you're doing this and you're doing that. But it's more of like, hey, let's help each other out. This is how I see what you bring to the table can be great here. And we do need you for this. And I can be an asset in this way. And this is how I can show up and be an asset. So it's really about showing up in a way that you are providing value. And that's how you kind of set those roles, so to speak. And again, nothing's meant to be rigid. It's just kind of a rule of thumb. And people are going to kind of dabble between them depending on how big your organization is. So I don't know if that helps answer your question. Again, my door is open. Feel free to connect with me. We can chat more. But I know we're kind of at time. But yeah, again, this is a lot to chew. I think baby steps are important. It's, showing up in a way that provides value and doesn't just force yourself per se into something that's not happening. I think you own those little victories. I think you can collect data. As a marketing, data is going to be your best friend. It's going to tell that story, right? The data story of understanding and showing like, hey, we went after all of these things over here. We had zero relationship with the client. We didn't do anything in the pursuit process. And this was the hit rate. But over here, we did all of these things and we positioned for it and all of that. And this was the outcome. So I think over time, again, that ROI of showing leadership and executives and people around you, like this works. So be patient with yourself, be patient with other people. We've all been taught a certain way. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Have a great rest of your day. And I'm excited for what's in store.
Thank you, Rachel, for taking the time to speak with us today and participating in Optimize. Everyone watching right now, if you could please fill out the survey on your screen, leave Rachel and I some feedback. We'd love to see it. The next session, driving efficiency and innovation with technology. Our speaker for that session is Karen Olson-Held, Director of Proposal and Sales Enablement, at WPS. This session begins at 4 o'clock Eastern time, and once this session concludes, it should redirect you to the next session. So we'll see you all there.
I love it. Okay. Everyone there.